For many of us, that just builds up until we're motivated to just rage against the world, to go out and to march against whatever it is we're against, or to put all of our energy in trying to shut down the people that we're convinced are the cause of the whole problem, the whole riddle of life. It was involuntary, but it was the only thing that felt right. My wife and I had just walked up the steps toward La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, Spain. And this church has been under construction for more than 100 years, but even the scaffolding could not hide the beauty and the grandeur of this architectural design. I mean, the spires are going up 500 feet into the air, and it's as if they're breaking through all of the conflicts and the struggles and the battles that are going on in the world and in our lives, and pointing to something beyond. And when we got close to them and looked up, all we could do was fall to our knees, because the beauty just surprised us and filled us up and made us fall to the ground. I mean, worship was the only proper response to that experience. And that's the problem, isn't it? That's the problem of the riddle of life. That we can have these kinds of experiences of beauty, whether it's architecture or the ocean or the trees or just the beauty of life. But at the same time, when we think about it, we have a twinge of guilt, because how can we feel so good when so many other people are feeling so bad? How can we be happy and joyful and filled up when there's so many struggles and battles going on? How does it work that we can experience such beauty in life while at the same time there's so much violence and suffering and pain? That is the riddle of life. What really sets us off a lot of times is the suffering and the violence of life. But if you think about it, it's the tension between that suffering and violence and the incredible beauty and the wonder of being alive that makes the riddle work. Because we see the violence and the suffering that's going on in the world against the backdrop of a deep blue sky with amazing white fluffy clouds just sailing along, and we feel that tension inside of ourselves. How can there be so much good and so much bad in this same existence? And for many of us, that just builds up until we're motivated to just rage against the world, to go out and to march against whatever it is we're against, or to put all of our energy in trying to shut down the people that we're convinced are the cause of the whole problem, the whole riddle of life. But before you do that, I would encourage you to think about 3 important questions that you have to answer about the riddle of life. Because it's only once you answer these questions about the riddle of life that you can come up with a solution that is consistent and strategic and frankly not hypocritical. So many of the options that are around us today are just immediate responses. They're hypocritical on all sides, and they're not at all strategic. So if you answer these 3 questions about the riddle, then you will be able to develop a plan that might actually make a difference in the world. So the first is, how did the riddle begin? Now there's 2 options that people generally have for this. One is that things started off and were really good, and then the riddle happened. That the riddle is some kind of aberration from the good that life is supposed to be. The other option is to say, no, it's always been intertwined like this. The riddle's always existed. There's always been good and bad ever since everything started. And the decision that you make on that is going to have a huge impact on the next question, which is, who caused it? Now again, if you take that latter example and you say, well, it's always been this way, it's probably always going to be that way, then that question's not all that important. Who did it? I don't know. But if you've decided that things were originally good and then this came out as an aberration, then the question of who caused this is absolutely essential. Because once you answer that question, then the third question can be answered in a responsible, hypocritical, non-hypocritical. Then the third one can be answered in a responsible, non-hypocritical, and strategic way. And that is, how do we solve for the riddle of life? That is, how do we work to try to get rid of the riddle of life? But if you don't have the answers to the other questions, you know what's going to happen? What's happening to all of us right now? You're just going to go from leader to leader who decides that they're going to get you pumped up about a particular issue so that you can get angry and rage and they can get more power. And then things never change. So take some time over the next week or two to really think deeply about, how did all of this happen? Because until you figure out those things, you're not going to come up with a response that's going to be helpful or satisfying.